So here we are, it is New Year's Eve and it is nearly 2023. By the time you watch this video, it probably will be 2023 because I've had a few rum and cokes, so there's a good chance this won't go out tonight. But yeah, I wanted to bring you my top 10 of 2022, the movies this year that have most surprised me, most impressed me, entertained me, was good value, the movies that I just kind of loved and really got on board with. Now you guys know that as part of Nerdly and Nerdly UK, Nerdly.com, Nerdly Out Loud and all the nerdliness, you guys know that I am more of a lower budget kind of guy. I do kind of fall into that bracket. So when I do these lists, that's more the movies I'm thinking of. The best movies this year that actually impressed me. Because I could turn around and tell you that Maverick, which, you know, spoiler alert, is in my top 10, but I could tell you that movie was my number one movie of the year, but I would be lying. Because I expected Maverick to be good. I expected Tom Cruise to be excellent in it. I expected the effects, you know, all the money they spent on that movie. I expected good things from that movie. So my list is more based around the movies that you maybe didn't expect to come out and be as good as they were. This is Nerdly Out Loud, the official channel of nerdly.co.uk. Please do all those wonderful things, like, subscribe, ding that bell. Keep an eye, because in the new year, 2023, I am going to be bringing out a Twitch channel. So on this Twitch channel, it's going to be the Nerdly TV Twitch channel, and I'm going to be doing wrestling reviews. I'm going to be doing some gaming. I'm going to be doing game reviews, movie reviews. I will be putting interviews on there. I'm planning on doing something pretty cool with Romford Horror, because I'm going there in February, by the way. And there's going to be loads of different stuff going on there as well. So I want you guys to keep an eye on that as well. But that's for next year. Let's get into my top 10 of 2022. So as I've already said, this list couldn't have been any harder for me to narrow this 10 down. So I do have some honourable mentions that I will throw out in a little bit. But first, my number 10 is Accident Man 2. Scott Adkins bringing back the Accident Man character, and this time pretty much being the main driving force of this movie. Accident Man 2 was everything I wanted. Hitman's Holiday, it was called. It was everything I kind of wanted, and a lot of things that I didn't know that I wanted. He took it down a little bit of a different path. It was slightly more comedic, I thought, than the first one, and I loved the first one, but there was lots and lots of just glorious action on show. And of course, Bo Fowler as Poco the Clown absolutely steals the show. Their fight towards the end of the movie is just absolutely glorious. And for me, George Kirby and Harry Kirby, this is just a pair of directors that we are going to have to be keeping an eye out for. They have a very clear idea of what they are doing. They knew what this movie was, played to every single one of Scott Adkins' strengths, and just made a great action flick that I kind of loved. So yeah, Accident Man 2 sits my number 10. Number 9, and this is a movie that came out way back at the start of the year. I think it was like February, March time. It is Zac Efron. It's a Zac Efron movie, which I didn't think I'd be saying at the end of this year. Zac Efron's going to be in my top 10. But the movie was called Gold, and I did a review for it. It's on the channel. I think all these films I've done reviews for on the channel, so do check out those reviews for a bit more info. But that movie was set in the Australian outback. It was Zac Efron basically putting himself through the ringer. He gets stuck out there. They find a lump of gold, and the other guy has to leave him to go and get help and to find machinery to pull out the gold from the ground. One of them has to stay, and Zac Efron stays. Now the movie is kind of like that sort of basic plot that we've seen before, but it also deals with this psychological edge of what would you do to your fellow man, or what would you put someone through for money, for fame, for all that kind of thing. And it had that underlying web that is just capitalized and punctuated with just a superb performance from Zac Efron. And he really does look like he put himself through the ringer on that movie. So yeah, Gold came out at the start of the year. Absolutely worth your time. Sits my number 9. So my number 8, I believe a couple of years back, or maybe even last year, when I was doing my top 5 or top 10, I put Knuckle Dust in there. I always take the chance to talk about Knuckle Dust. I got a Knuckle Dust t-shirt on, and James Kermack, that is, you know, you can pay me later. I have mentioned you in my 2022 top 10. But another movie that came out this year by one of the stars of that movie, or the star of that movie, Mo Dunford, was Night Ride. And Night Ride sits in my number 8. It's a one-shot movie. I kind of thought I was maybe getting done with these things, but every now and then a film comes out that seems to break that mold a little bit more. Boiling Point was one that really got to me. Night Ride is basically the story of Mo Dunford leaves the house, gets in the car, he's got a job to do, and he's going to drive around and he's going to make that job happen. He's got other people that he needs to work on, so he's on the phone quite a bit. It's a bit like Locke, but with more action and more of a storyline and anticipation, and it's basically everything that could go wrong goes wrong. So he has to now try and fix it. But he can't really get in and do it himself because he's trying to keep himself off the radar a little bit. But he's got to fix it. I loved Night Ride. I didn't really know if it was going to work when I read the premise and heard what it actually was. But Mo Dunford smashes it out of the park in terms of performance. I think a lot of the voices, like even though you only really hear their voices, they're all doing great jobs. And honestly, I think the director, this is a very adventurous one-shot movie because it's constantly moving. And I'm not just talking about sitting with the camera inside the car. I'm talking about we're moving outside the car. We're doing a lot of different things here. I loved this film. Night Ride was a fantastic film, and that's why it's in my top 10. Number 7 for me, Top Gun Maverick. Who the hell saw this coming? Who saw this coming? Like, I genuinely thought we're going to get a good Top Gun sequel. Like, there's no way they're going to make this movie unless it's reasonably good. And they took all the time to get it done because obviously Tom Cruise decided he wanted to learn how to fly an F-15 or whatever it was called. Like, he wanted to learn how to fly these jets, as he does, and as he has every right to do. It's Tom frickin' Cruise. Why wouldn't he? But what they did was they took a very simple, basic, kind of bland plot, threw in that Top Gun mix of just awesome manliness, and made a great little flick. It was a really good movie. I expected it to be good. I expected with all the money that was getting put into it, I expected it to look good, sound good. Miles Teller, I love Miles Teller, so I expected him to be awesome. But I kind of came out of the movie thinking, shit, that was really bloody good. So yeah, there's not much else you can say about Top Gun Maverick. It's absolutely one of those movies you could sit down, turn your brain off, and just enjoy it on a Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, whatever you want. You will enjoy that movie. It's a shame for me. I was a huge Tony Scott fan, so it is a shame Tony Scott wasn't here to make this, wasn't here to even see this if he wasn't going to make it. But you know what? They did a great job. They did a really good job, and I could see them making another Top Gun. And you know what? I kind of wouldn't mind it. I'd watch it. So yeah, Top Gun Maverick makes my top 10. My number 6, and this one I fully expected to be in my list. It was actually a little bit higher at one point because I did love it. But when I really thought about some of the other movies I've got in there, I thought there's no real way I can bump these down for this. But my number 6 is Matilda the Musical. Yes, Matilda the Musical. I know everybody's sitting there tearing their hair out. Kevin, what are you doing? What are you doing? Matilda the Musical? I took my girls to see the stage show of this. I'm a huge Tim Minchin fan, so let's just get that out of the way. His music and lyrics on the stage show were absolutely just spot on, perfection in every single way. The man's a god, he's a genius, he's amazing at what he does. Nobody does it better than him. But when they said they were putting it on the screen, as in a movie, I was kind of like, okay, but are we going to follow the basis of the original movie? Are we going to stick with the book? Are we going to stick with what Tim Minchin's done? And we pretty much stick with what Tim Minchin's done. Yes, there are some changes which make it really cool to see because you get a little bit of a different story again from what he did on the stage. But for the most part, the movie follows the script, or for the most part, the movie follows the stage play. I genuinely just thought it was absolutely wonderful. The music in the film just hits a little bit harder. It's nice and loud. I think the young girl who plays Matilda is brilliant. Lashana Lynch, who I'm not a massive fan of, to be fair, and that's not her fault. It's the role she's been cast in. But she's really good as Miss Honey, so I was really cool with that. Emma Thompson, This might be a little bit bold, but I'm actually tempted to say that I could see Emma Thompson getting a nod, getting an Oscar nod, maybe? Like, maybe? It would be interesting. But yeah, Matilda, if you haven't seen Matilda the musical, please do check it out. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie. And it even has OBE, newly made OBE Stephen Graham. So yeah, and that, my friends, has been a long time coming. The man's a genius. We love the man. So please do make him a knight soon. Just give him a knighthood. Yeah. So Matilda the musical, my number 6. I'll say it now, my top 5 could be pretty much interchangeable on any day. I do have them in order, but I could pretty much move these around as much as I wanted. But I did have to give it some sort of ranking and kind of put them in positions. But number 5 for me is Cop Secret. Yes, you heard me right, Cop Secret. It's an Icelandic action comedy buddy cop movie that absolutely floored me. It took me completely by surprise how good this movie was. I watched the trailer and I was kind of like, oh, it's like, the French version of Taxi, a little bit of Fast and the Furious, a little bit of Bad Boys. We've got all those tropes in this trailer. I wasn't ready for how good this film was. The two main characters were absolutely brilliant. They throw in a romantic angle where these two male cops fancy each other and fall in love, which was just brilliant. Like, kind of bonkers a little bit for the movie, but it just worked. Everything about this movie, Cop Secret, totally worked for me. But honestly, just watch Cop Secret. Watch my review. It'll be down below, so you can watch that anytime you want. But you 100% have to check this movie out. Soundtrack is dope as shit, but the movie itself, this is wonderful. So, top 5. So I did say that I was going to give a few honourable mentions. These are just a few movies that kind of were in my top, but then kind of just fell down because I just didn't have room for them. So I'm just going to pick out a few. Netflix's Troll, which recently came out. Genuinely brilliant movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Terrifier 2 was a movie that came out this year, and it actually did really well. Got a little bit of a following going, and as far as I can tell, it's still doing well. That's great. Summit Fever with Ryan Philippe, Climbing the Mountain. I interviewed the director. I loved that film. Great film. Scream came out this year, the new Scream. It wasn't fantastic, but it was okay. Everything Everywhere All at Once. Short Round, loved that film. Black Adam got a lot of grief, but genuinely, I enjoyed the movie. I think it's a really good movie. Control, that was a nice little one-room kind of thriller that really got me going, and it was sort of like she was part of a game and an experiment. Death Pursuit, a Vinnie Jones movie that came out a few months back. Genuinely really liked that. Bull with Neil Maskell, just a wonderful little tight thriller that everybody really got into. The Batman movie, I love my Batman. There was no point putting that in my top 10 because I love me some Batman. And 3 Day Millionaire was another one that I genuinely loved. And up until today, when I was really putting this list together, that was in my top 10. It really was. And Fall, that's the last one I'm going to throw in there. The one with the telephone tower with the two girls climb it. Most of these movies I have reviewed down below. Check out my reviews. They're all movies you should definitely see. They just didn't get into my top 10 today because I had to narrow that down. And with that, let's move into our number 4. Number 4 for me is Banshees of the Inisherin. Now, I did have this, like, 1 or 2. Right after I watched it, I thought, this is 1 or 2 for me. Colin Farrell's amazing in it. Brendan Gleeson's amazing in it. Martin McDonagh's done a fantastic job of taking this little simple story of a guy who's just fallen out with a friend and doesn't want to speak to him anymore, but the other guy won't have it. Like, he's taken that simple story and made it into this whole thing that entertained the crap out of me. And Barry Keoghan steals the movie for me. He's just a wonderful actor that I just see doing amazing things going forward. We will see with Barry Keoghan what he does. I would quite like to see his Joker. Like, I genuinely want to see that. So maybe one day, not right now, but maybe one day we'll get there. But Banshees of Inisherin was just a movie that came out of nowhere and did all that. But then I spoke to a good friend of the show, Lance Nielsen, and he kind of put a couple of things in perspective for me about that movie, in the fact that, like, would I rush out to see it again? Are you invested enough in the story and in the characters that you would rush to see that movie again? And I'm a big repeat watcher. Like, I really am. Like, I'll watch movies over and over again. But this one, when I really think about it, yeah, I'll probably watch it again in a few years' time. Like, it's not going to be next year. It's not going to be 2023. But in a couple of years' time, I'll probably revisit it. I take nothing away from the movie. The performances are wonderful. The story is just great. The way he's taken, like I say, such a small, trivial thing and turned it into a whole drama, you know, like he really has. But yeah, when I really think about it, I'll watch it again, but it won't be for a little while. So that's why I kind of had to knock it down a little bit. But for a while, it was sitting there with the performances and Barry Keoghan. It was sitting there. It just comes down a little bit. So yeah, it goes into number 4 for me. So let's move into our top 3 of 2022. My number 3 is those boys. Richard Oakes and Adam Leader and Neil Ward are back with their new movie, Feed Me. The story of a cannibalistic self-help guru who wants to help a guy leave this world through mutual human consumption. He's gonna eat him. Now, for me, Feed Me was a movie that I was really looking forward to see. I liked the guy's first movie, Hosts. I really did like that movie. But Feed Me just felt like something that was more like them to the nth degree. Like, if you watch their YouTube channel that they had when they were making little short movies and everything like that, these were sort of the antithesis of what these guys want to do. And Feed Me very much feels like those. Hosts had a bit of that, but Feed Me just leans right into it. And the guys created this wonderful little buddy movie between these two guys who kind of, one of them wants to help the other one, but really he's just kind of helping himself. And they make this weird character of Lionel Flack just lovable as hell. Like, Neil Ward obviously gets a lot of props for that because he brought this character to life. And from what I can tell and from the times I've spoken to him, he really went for it and took a lot of like inspiration from other places, but put that Neil Ward twist on it. I love Lionel Flack. I think he's awesome. I feel like we should just have a whole movie franchise of Lionel Flack, to be fair. But if we don't, we don't. But yeah, Feed Me, a wonderful, wonderful film. You need to check it out as soon as you can. You'll enjoy it. It's great. It's going to be at the Romford Horror Festival in February, and so am I. So be there or be square. Oh, nah, I said that. Let's move on. So my number 2, I said before that in my top 5, they're all quite interchangeable. They are pretty much where they would sit. But my 1 and my 2, definitely, you could swap them around any time of the day. Like, one of them is a very kind of light-hearted movie. The other one is a more kind of serious movie. But no spoilers quite yet. But my number 2 is Eating Miss Campbell. Liam Regan's follow-up to My Bloody Banjo, which is a movie that we at Nerdly loved. I loved personally. And when Eating Miss Campbell was coming out, it was on the radar. It had to be seen because it was like, let's see what Liam Regan can do with a little bit more time, a little bit more budget, and just let's see what the boy can do. And he came out with Eating Miss Campbell, a movie about a goth girl who kind of wants to kill herself, but in her own movie, because it's very meta, she's talking to you as a viewer. The breaking the fourth wall thing kind of, I feel like it's a little bit outplayed, but if you're going to do it, you have to do it spot on, and Lindsay Crane did it spot on. I think that's to do with the fact that she's just so likable as a person, if you know what I mean, and as an actress, you're already kind of on board with Lindsay Crane, so no matter what heinous crap that she might be doing, you're still kind of going to follow her, and you're still on that train. So yeah, she kind of wants to die, but she keeps on saying that in her own horror movie, she couldn't do it right and it would always fail. But then she gets the chance when the school that she goes to decides to throw a sort of competition to see who can kill everyone, and then you get a gun, and then you can kill yourself because movies. It's a great comedy. It's an out loud, audacious comedy. It goes a little bit too far when it needs to, but it never feels like it's too far. It definitely is at times, but it doesn't feel that way. And yeah, it's just great. Like, I think Liam Regan has a great future ahead of him. He knows what he's doing. He's got his tongue firmly in his cheek when it comes to the movies that he's making. He's from the Trauma School, so I can't wait to see what Liam Regan does next. And if you haven't seen Eating Miss Campbell, you absolutely have got to see this movie. It's so funny. It's so dark. It's so twisted. It's been banned in some countries, which I just think is great in this day and age that people still ban movies. But Eating Miss Campbell, it's a wonderful movie. It could have been my number one. Put it to number two, because performances in my number one are just insane. So let's get into that. And this is one that, if you've seen any other videos where I've reviewed some movies, I did an interview with the director, you will know that this movie was coming. My number one is A Violent Man. Just outrageously good, performance-driven. Craig Fairbrass at his absolute best in this movie. It's about a man in prison, and this new guy comes into his cell, and he sort of kind of takes him under his wing, but he doesn't really want to. It's a little bit of a conflict inside of him. And then his daughter kind of wants to see him, but he doesn't really want to see her because of the reasons that he's in prison, which we'll not really talk about because I don't want to spoil it. But honestly, Craig Fairbrass, what a performance. And it's capped off by director Ross McCall, who I am a fan of, and I've seen some of his stuff from back in the day. He's a great director. He's got a great future ahead of him. And if you wanted to have that perfect sort of demo reel, A Violent Man is absolutely that. We're spending most of the movie in a prison cell, but it doesn't feel all that contained. It feels very claustrophobic at times, but we're not feeling that contained because they find ways to move the camera around, ways to frame the shot differently for every different shot. And yeah, it's just it's the performance really that sucks you in and just kicks you square to the balls and makes this, for me, just a top quality movie. There wasn't much else that could come along this year that might beat this in terms of seriousness, in terms of story-wise. It got to the core for a number of reasons, because there were personal reasons that this movie hit me as well, which we'll not go into. I did with Ross McCall on my interview, so if you want to see that, check it out. I did kind of tell him some of the reasons that this movie got to me, but believe me, it got under my skin. It's currently on Netflix still in the UK. It probably will be in America as well. Find A Violent Man, watch A Violent Man, and you will understand instantly why that movie is my number one of 2022. Ross McCall, you smashed that movie, you broke my heart, and you kicked me in the balls. What a film that was. Wow. Craig Fairbrass, wonderful performance. Wonderful performance. But yeah, Violent Man is my number one. And that's been my top 10 of 2022. It's maybe not a list that you maybe expected. It's maybe not the list that you're seeing everyone else do, because everyone else is doing their list. But I got to stick true to myself. There are some blockbusters in there. There's a couple in there. But for the most part, you all know that I seek out the more lower budget, the more independent, the more up and coming. And a lot of those movies are very low budget, very independent, and very up and coming. You know, you've got Liam Regan in there, who's very much on his way. You've got Richard Oakes and Adam Leder, the Dark Fable guys, very much on their way. Ross McCall, I think this is his calling card. I think he can pretty much now push forward with A Violent Man and show people, look, this is what I can do. Just give me a little bit of money. Let me do my job and let me go on for it. We had an Icelandic action thriller, comedy, romance movie, which was just wonderful. Maverick's in there. And yeah, like, it's been a great year for movies. It really has. I've thoroughly enjoyed reviewing things this year. And if you check below, I keep saying it, but you will see the movies that I've been watching, you'll see what I've been reviewing, and the way I've been reviewing them. So really, this list probably won't come as any massive surprise. Going into 2023, I'm going to be pushing that train forward. Obviously, as I mentioned before, we've got the Twitch channel. I'm going to be doing like live reviews of like wrestling programs and stuff like that, live reviews of movies, stuff like that. I'm going to be doing some gaming. I'm going to do a gaming series on some maybe games that are kind of based around movies, which should be cool. We've got loads incoming. I'm back at Romford in February, and then I think I'll be there again in June, so that's going to be cool. Yeah, Impact reviews will be coming in, Impact interviews, reviews, exclusive, everything. Believe me, I'm burning the candles at both ends for you guys because we love you. So yeah, please do. I am Kevin Haldon. This is Nerdly Out Loud. Let me know what you think of my top 10. If you disagree or if you agree, put something in the comments. What have been your best movies of this year? Let's keep the conversation going. And I am off to finish my drinks. Peace.